want it to be, what happens? But a massive destructive experience happens where his life stops in his tracks. How many of us have had that happen in our life? The big moment that something massively was taken away from us that we were attached to. And it's probably something we dwell on now, and we go back and we go, wow, that was the thing that changed my life. That was the thing that awakened me into the being that I am. And it doesn't have to always be a really difficult, dark thing, but it tends to be a very difficult thing. So when you look at the world right now, there's so much hardship. Our planet has a fever, you know. They just discovered this week that the water in our oceans it's climbing in temperature faster than they thought. I can't even watch the news anymore because I honestly, like, ignorance is bliss, and I'm going to live in a blissful spiritual place and stay in a higher state, and hopefully we can come around. But that's what this talk is about. What are we bringing into the consciousness of this world and this planet, right? So this kid says to God, basically, or the spiritual, whatever word works for you, source, spirit, light, whatever makes you feel hugged, protected, connected, I'm going to go make my life be what I want it to be, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing in the world, right? It's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's crossed our minds, how much darker could it get? But when you think about contrast, wow, this is a very exciting time, because how much darker could it get? Wow, what is the contrast of the light that we're going to get from this darkness? Because all of us have experienced that. When we've had the very thing be pulled out from underneath us that we were attached to, there's a grief period. There's a falling away period. Finally, we can't maneuver our way through it. We finally have to connect with something greater, something grander, something more powerful, something more substantial. The only energy that actually shifts or changes or grows something. There's a wonderful book called The Eye of the Storm by Gary Sims. And he is the co-writer of a book called The Q Process, which we're about to bring a big workshop with his wife teaching it next month. And it's all on the shadow work and facing our shadow part of ourselves, the limited part of ourselves where we still believe that we're not made in the image of God, and the limitlessness and the magic that we can create in this world when we believe that we are actually an extension of the Christ light, right? So the Eye of the Storm was the beginning work that they did, and then they moved into the Q Process. But this is going to talk about how do we get our attention? How does Spirit get our attention? And unfortunately, a lot of times this is how Spirit gets our attention. Imbalance, incongruity, ignorance, and self-deception drive the challenges of our lives. Conflicts arise to get our attention and to help us find our center and a way back to wholeness. When we push life away, however, we push against the balancing mechanism of life itself. Whether we like it or not, we must eventually meet ourselves full circle by blending the energies of our soul and our human nature into a synergistic whole. This means we must learn how to embrace life completely without needing it to be a certain way, so we can discover that our essence cannot be limited or contained by our human experience. This means we must learn how to embrace life completely without needing it to be a certain way, so we can discover that our essence cannot be limited or contained by our human experience. So this is how the universe gets our attention. So many of us are looking through different lenses in life. Obviously, we're all here together, listening to the sermon together, and there are no coincidences, and we're all co-creators to some extent. We're creating something in our life, and it may be, hopefully, for the positive, but we also could be creating from a limitation, and so therefore, we're still feeding into the egoic nature of the human being versus the spiritual being. The spiritual is the limitless. It's the connection to the ether, to that higher state of consciousness that actually has the answers to the difficulties that we are facing in our lives right now. whether it be our relationships, our work, our homes, whatever it is, there's no way that there's this much discord out in the world and we're not feeling it in our worlds. Because what we see out there is an expression of who we are. I know we don't want to accept that. I know we don't want to believe that. But until we can figure out what it is that we're supposed to be learning about what's going on out there, we're not going to be able to bring the change that we want to see in this world into fruition. We as a collective whole are the co-creators. There is no second coming of Christ, this idea that the Christians have, that the second coming of Christ is going to fix this mess that the humans have made. In unity, we know that the second coming of Christ is the dying off of the old, limited thought process and belief systems about ourselves and stepping into the giants that we were put here to be, to discover and to apply to every aspect of our life, to our parenting, to our loving, to our giving, to our discovering, to our gratitude, to our auras, to our vibrations, and on and on. No matter what phase we are in, we probably have young people here that are just starting their lives out of college. And that's the phase of, what was I put here to do and be? Renee, do you have the answer to that? I'll put my daughter on the spot. You do know what you're here to do and be. What is it? A lot of things, like what? To help people. Okay, what else? To inspire through performing for you, okay? Right, so finding that she's a performer, but to know that in everything there's a congruency with bringing Christ's light through everything. To bring that beauty into every aspect of our lives. And then there's some of us who are sitting here in our middle life, and the lens is probably, now what? Right? Lots of us have had things fall away that we're used to and are connected to and even liked. And we have to pick up the pieces at this middle point and find our passion for life in a whole new way, with a new lens. Right? It's not now about getting married, and it's not now about having the children. We're past that. Now, what is the birth? What is the exciting moment? What is it that wakes us up and we're passionate about? And then there's the lens that you have 10, 20 years left at the most. What vibration do you want to bring to the consciousness at this phase of your life? Do you want to be nitpicking and looking at things like they're just not as good as they used to be? Right? I already do that. Like the pop music right now is just garbage, right? But what did our parents say about our pop music, right? So I'm already starting, you see these funny little patterns that we get into. But the difference between where we're at right now is that we really are at a very crucial phase. No matter what phase, age-wise, we are between our 0 to 100 years old. We are all in this together. We're the ones that are going to make the changes that we need to see to change this world, to heal this planet. In unity, we have 5 basic unity principles, and number 3 goes like this. We are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. Let's read this together. We are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. What thoughts are being held in your mind? Are they empowering thoughts? Are they judgmental thoughts? What is sitting underneath the rug that it needs to be come into birth so we can look at it and do some healing so that we can get our consciousness healed and connected. What are we harboring about ourselves? Are we not young enough anymore? Are we not pretty enough anymore? Are we not smart enough or brave enough? Or fill it in. What are the things that are going in your mind? What are things that are said to you that aren't empowering you? You can call it out. Fears. Right? Huh? Young enough, okay? Insecurities in general.
Financially aware.
Right, so we have to see what we're holding in our consciousness, because thoughts held in mind bring about the same experience over and over again. So if I am not young enough, we are actually going to look in the mirror, and each day we're going to look older and older and older, right? Because we're harboring that we're not old enough. So we're telling our consciousness that we're not young enough, and so it's coming from a state of lack instead of looking at how beautiful the wisdom looks on your face. It's all in perspective. It's all recognizing that everything comes from good. So we're talking about the polarity from darkness to light. There's a really wonderful book called Broken Open by Elizabeth Lesser, and I've recommended it to many people in this congregation when they're going through a difficult time. And I was given this book when I lost my son many years ago, and I felt like my life had ended. And yet, the process of going through the loss of that was also my awakening. And I want to share a story that's very similar to what I felt a little bit, and it goes like this, and it's spoken in the first person. I was 45 years old then. This is not me. This is somebody else, by the way. 45 yet lost. On the outside, I was the wife of a doctor, the mother of 2 sons, a respected professional. But on the inside, my marriage was in a terrible state. My work had lost its sense of meaning. My kids had grown up. I felt as if I was treading water in a stagnant pond. I did not really know how to go on. And then we got the call. My 20-year-old son, Jeff, had passed away. Jeff's death was the event that rocked Sharon's inner world. It was the tipping point from which she made major changes in her marriage, work, and her deepest sense of self. For a while, Sharon spiraled down into her grief. And once there, she was confronted by the deadness and the pain she felt in life itself. It looked to her as if her own life would not survive the death of Jeff.
I don't know what to do now.
To us to find that purpose. In the grand scheme of life, it is up to us to find the purpose of why we chose to come in at this time. We've been here many lifetimes. This is just this lifetime. We've chosen to be that co-creator that can find the answers and the healing to our coral reefs, to the trash in this ocean, to seeing 7 generations down the road as the Native Americans lived. They never lived for themselves. They lived for their children and their children and their children. We become two of the ego and self-serving, self-satisfying. Look at all the trash we're creating, all the wrapping on everything. The ones that are really standing up are the young people in college, because they actually could see the end of the world happen on their watch. And we're the parents, we're the grandparents. The emergency is that we have to clean up what's underneath this rug that we have not healed within ourselves so that we can make the difference and be the change we have to see in this world. We can't accept it. In Broken Open, it goes on to say, Jeff's death held up the mirror to my pain, Sharon writes, in a way that nothing else could have. A mirror of pain that reflected more pain, like a fun house mirror, distorting everything, making it bigger, scarier. In one way, Jeff's death was Sharon's death, but it also was her rebirth. It brought her into the shadow, where she retrieved the parts of herself she needed in order to live again. Later, she says, I still struggle, but the rewards are clear. I'm all here. I'm aware of what is happening in me, in my life. It's not hidden anymore, so I have choices. I don't have to be pulled into the darkness to be born again. This darkness is calling for a rebirth in consciousness within us. It starts here. No more blaming that someone else out here, out here, out here, out here. If you're living impeccably in your truth and your actions, what you're bringing vibrationally to every room, that's enough of a job, trust me. If you really want to live within that, you'll start to see the change that you want to see. You have to start by meditating every day. In my prosperity class, that's one of the commitments the students make, is to meditate at least 5 minutes a day. We do all sorts of work of visualizations and affirmations and speaking to the universe what we want to create, and what we give out, we're going to get tenfold, and I see that whole process. But what my students always say to me is that the meditation changed their life more than anything else, because they connected with that greater potential, that greater love. Every morning, just that 5 minutes of saying that that higher consciousness within me is more important than me rushing out in this world and getting in the busyness and yelling on the highways and saying people cut you off and still living in a place that you think that you can dictate, control, and say it's going to be my way or the highway, and you keep ending up empty, keep coming up short, keep coming up depressed, keep coming up alone. When I lost my son, he was the same thing for me. He broke my heart in a million pieces. And I didn't know myself. I didn't realize I didn't, because the loss of him made me feel the loss of everything that I had ever lost, every relationship that I lost, me giving up on myself and not going after my dancing career, all the things that I had let myself down, and I didn't go for it because I didn't feel good enough, I didn't feel lovable, I didn't feel smart enough, I didn't feel all of it. And that loss of the child gave the contrast that I had so much. I found the love for myself. I found the love and compassion for myself. I saw what a beautiful daughter I was. I saw what a beautiful mother I was. I saw what a beautiful sister I was. I knew who I was because my son gave me my life. It was the death of my old self, the mask-wearing person that wanted to get everybody to like me or accept me. And now I didn't care if people liked me or accepted me. It dropped me into me. Do I like me? Do I accept me? So that I may be this giant that God put me here to be and do. What is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate. What is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate. Edgar Cayce talks about this a little bit. The idea, it's almost like karma. There's no, they'll talk to Edgar, Edgar Cayce would go into a sleep state. If you don't know who he is, he was the sleeping prophet. He's the only proven psychic that ever existed. And he would go into a sleep state and do readings on people, and he would visit this place called the Akashic Records. And apparently there's a record on every one of our souls, and we can access our journey and whether the soul grew one lifetime or went backwards one lifetime, et cetera, et cetera. So this idea that what is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate. There's an idea that the karma, it's kind of this idea, karma is memory. It's soul memory, though. So it's not necessarily it's in our consciousness or even subconsciousness. It's been carried in the soul from past lifetimes to this lifetime. So sometimes there's a lifetime that's really difficult because you have a memory of being a person that wasn't good to people or lied to people or stole from people. And this lifetime, you're finding how to be honorable, truthful, awake. Right? So what is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate, not because God is punishing you, but you can't completely live fully as you till you can face the very things that keep speaking that you're anything less than perfect. It's Christ's light in action. It's God in action. It's source in action. What are you bringing to your life? What are you calling for your life? What do you want? Because it's all at hand. Everything you've ever prayed for, God knows what you want and wants to give it to you. But can you unblock yourself enough to allow God to give it to you and receive it? Because you're worthy. Because you're perfect. Because you're made in the image and likeness of God, which is perfection. The second you decide to step into your true nature, your God-given truth. In Matthew 14:22 through 33, the story goes like this. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowd, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time, the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning, he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started to walk on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and beginning to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" You of little faith, why did you doubt? So if you can bring to mind right now an area of your life that is not serving you, that you're stressing about, that's keeping you up at night, don't you know that there's a gem within this turbulence and this difficulty? That's that wind that's coming up, and they got scared, and they retreat, and they stop believing there's something greater at hand. But this universe is honorable. And there's something greater at hand. This depth, this hardship, is got within it the very answers that you're looking for to the questions you have. Why do you doubt? Where is your faith? What are you giving into your faith? Are you meditating? Are you taking the time to pray? Are you walking in nature? Are you saying thank you for everything that you have? The more you say thank you, and have gratitude, the more you'll have to say thank you for. And so at the end of this movie, this young man, Dan, is being taught how to live in the presence. That this gold medal that he wants to attain so importantly is not important. It's about the overcoming of his own fears from the injuries and the things that he has faced, and to let be what is to be, to get into the presence of his connection with God. And he starts healing himself, and he's starting to find that the mind over the body, the spiritual body, can heal this body so that he could come back to the athlete that he was. But it wasn't about the athlete. It's about the spiritual soul awakening. And this is how it ends. You've got this. It doesn't matter what phase you're in. You're needed. And you're being called to a greater life. Each and every one of you is the beacon of light that is being called for our own personal joy and happiness and peace, so that may blind the world and heal the adversities and the darkness of the world. But I want everybody to stand up really quick. And we're going to get, this is a power position. We're going to just receive our power position. And the affirmation is, everything is always working out for me. We're going to say it together. Everything is always working out for me. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And that's how I see it. This is Shad, my brother, and he'll be speaking next week, and he'll be continuing on this talk. All right.
I am. So I just learned that's how you get a standing ovation at the end of your talk. I'm just taking notes on that one. We're going to take an offering for unity now. And I like to remind you when we're taking an offering, how often do we get to invest in ourselves, the spiritual transformation of ourselves and the spiritual transformation of this world? Well, that's exactly what we do in this moment right now. We are taking part of this thousands of years old ancient practice of giving of ourselves to this greater growth that we need to see. And if you're watching us online, I invite you to join us in this process. You can hit the donate button, or you can go to our website and donate there, but to be a part of this giving experience. And so we're going to bless this offering. If you'll join me in saying it, it's up here on the screens. It's up here on the screens. There it is. If you'll say it with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive because I give. Thank you.
So I am going to do a song by Daniel Nahmad. We are excited. We're going to have him in concert Friday, February 22nd at 7 p.m. So we'll start, you'll see ads and stuff coming up about that and where to buy tickets and that sort of thing. But I wanted to go ahead and sing this song for you today by him. If this is my last song, if this is my final day, if tomorrow I'll be gone, what do I want to say? If this is my last song, if it's my time to go, when my body's moved on, what will I have to show? Oh, but fortune and fame, they scatter to the wind. The things that make a name just don't matter in the end. Is the world a little more peaceful? Oceans and sky a little more blue? Is humankind a little bit wiser about the good that we can do? Does the sun shine a little bit brighter where before there was only rain? If so, then I'm glad I came. If these are my last words for all of the earth to hear, if all that I have ever been is about to disappear, if these are my last words, there's nothing that I need to say. I have only tried to serve. It's never been about talking anyway. So much hurt there is to heal. It's hard
Thank you, Erna, and thank you, band. They're always so amazing for us. We're so blessed. We have food and tea and gathering out here on this side of the building, and I'll be over there to meet you with Jack as well. And then Shad, my associate minister, will be out in the lobby at the greeting table where you can find out about upcoming classes and drop-in groups and things of that nature. And CDs of this talk right after the service is available in the bookstore on this side. All right, let's all rise and close with our closing benediction. Everything is always working out for me. Thank you, God.
You know, let's walk to Will. 3, 4.